Imagine taking a final exam where the only objective is to get a single spoonful of mashed pumpkin into a crying subject's mouth.
Oh, that sounds like a nightmare.
Right. And if you fail, you feel like you've somehow, I don't know, compromised their entire future. For most parents and caregivers, the 6-month feeding milestone feels exactly like this kind of high-stakes test.
It really does. It is incredibly daunting for people.
You've got the camera phones out, you've bought the special little rubber spoon, the bib, and there's this immense crushing pressure that every single bite is a critical nutritional exam.
Yeah, and society tends to frame this milestone as a pass or fail moment. We treat it like we are suddenly entirely responsible for building a human being from scratch using only pureed vegetables.
Which is terrifying.
Exactly. And if the baby rejects it, well, we assume we've done something terribly wrong.
So what if we completely change the lens on that? What if we look at this not as a nutritional exam, but as a messy, colorful, and honestly fascinating learning experience?
I love that approach.
Yeah. And that is our mission for today's deep dive. We are unpacking some incredibly practical notes from Dr. Mahesh Yadav's guide. It's called Nurturing the First Bite, and it focuses entirely on starting babies on solid foods at the 6-month mark.
And this guide is just a phenomenal resource because it systematically strips away all that anxiety surrounding early feeding.
It really does.
It reorients our entire perspective on what a baby is actually experiencing when they encounter solid food for the very first time.
For sure. And whether you are a parent, a caregiver, or honestly just someone fascinated by human biology and like how our brains and bodies learn to do things, this topic is universally relatable.
Oh, absolutely.
By the end of this deep dive, we are going to cut through all the conflicting advice and construct a simple, stress-free, color-coded weekly feeding plan that you can use or share.
Which is a game changer.
It really is. But before we get to the actual menu, we need to understand the timing, because I always assumed the 6-month mark was just a somewhat arbitrary calendar date, just a convenient milestone.
A lot of people think that.
Right, but looking at these notes, it's actually a strict biological tipping point.
It is an exact intersection of physical readiness and a shifting nutritional baseline. So let's look at the biology first.
Okay, lay it on me.
During the 3rd trimester of pregnancy, a baby builds up this massive reserve of iron from the mother. They are essentially born with a biological piggy bank full of iron.
A biological piggy bank? I like that.
Yeah, but by the time they hit 6 months, that piggy bank is nearly empty.
And their bodies are growing so rapidly at that point, right? They are wiring up their brains, building muscle mass, and their immune systems are maturing.
Exactly. They suddenly require significantly higher levels of iron, zinc, and just overall energy.
So the milk isn't cutting it anymore.
Well, up until 6 months, breast milk or formula provides absolutely everything they need. But at that half-year mark, milk alone simply cannot keep up with the elevated demand for those specific minerals. Solid foods step in to bridge that gap.
Got it. So there is a very real nutritional cliff they are approaching. But the guide also stresses that nutrition is only half the equation, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Like the physical anatomy has to be ready to handle the food. Otherwise, you're introducing a massive choking hazard.
Yeah, the physical signs are non-negotiable. You are looking for a baby who has strong head and neck control, meaning they aren't bobbing around.
Right.
They need to be able to sit up with support. And crucially, they should be showing an active cognitive interest in food, like watching you eat, reaching for your plate, and opening their mouth when a spoon is offered.
So if they're not doing those things, you shouldn't force it.
Exactly. If you start before those anatomical and cognitive milestones are met, you risk serious digestion issues and unsafe swallowing.
Which brings up a concept I think we adults completely overlook. Like we just inhale our lunch while staring at a screen.
Guilty.
Right. But for a baby, swallowing a solid is a completely foreign, highly complex biomechanical task. Dr. Yadav frames this early stage with a really core philosophy. It is about practice, not performance.
And that is a critical distinction to make. A 6-month-old is developing hand-to-mouth coordination. They are learning how to manipulate their tongue in entirely new ways and processing new textures.
It makes me think of learning to ride a bike with training wheels.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Yeah, like the goal isn't to win the Tour de France and get all their daily calories in one sitting. The goal is literally just to figure out how the pedals work.
Right. You don't expect a toddler on a balance bike to commute to work.
Exactly. You just want them to feel the sensation of not falling over. With food, you just want the baby to experience a texture that isn't liquid.
That is the perfect way to visualize it.
Mhm.
And keeping that practice mindset is what prevents you from panicking when the baby only eats half a teaspoon.
So, if we accept that this is purely a training wheels phase, how do we make that learning systematic? Because honestly, tracking milligrams of zinc and iron sounds exhausting.
Nobody wants to do that.
No. And this is where the guide introduces this brilliant concept, the rainbow feeding plan. The premise is to build a simple weekly structure focusing on one color per day, offering only one new food at a time.
And ensuring everything is served soft, mashed, or as a porridge.
Right. So why colors?
The color coding strategy is essentially a biological cheat code. By grouping foods by pigment rather than complicated nutritional profiles, you naturally rotate the baby through all the essential vitamins and minerals without ever needing a spreadsheet.
It completely removes the mental load of meal planning.
Exactly.
So let's test that logic. We're starting tiny, just 1 to 2 teaspoons, once daily, if we kick off the week on Monday with yellow or orange foods.
Right, the guide suggests mashed carrot, pumpkin, or sweet potato.
Okay, so what specific gap are we plugging there?
Well, yellow and orange pigments are the classic indicators of beta-carotene, which the body converts into vitamin A.
Oh, sure, carrots and eyesight. We've heard that our whole lives.
Exactly. At this rapid stage of development, vitamin A is the cornerstone for supporting early vision health and fortifying the immune system against infections.
That feels super intuitive. So then Tuesday, we shift to the green category.
Yeah, so options here are mashed peas, beans, spinach, or dal, which is a lentil puree.
Okay, if I see dark leafy greens and legumes, my mind immediately goes to iron. Is that the primary target for Tuesday?
Iron is definitely the main event. We just discussed that biological piggy bank of iron running empty at 6 months, right?
Okay.
Green foods directly replenish those stores, which is vital for blood health and cognitive development.
Right.
But equally important here is the fiber.
Because their digestion is changing.
Yes. As you transition a baby from a liquid diet to solids, their digestive system has to learn how to process bulk. The fiber in greens and lentils keeps that maturing digestive system moving smoothly. It really prevents the very common issue of infant constipation.
Good to know. Okay, so Wednesday, we've got the red category. The guide suggests mashed tomato or beetroot. I have to say, giving a 6-month-old mashed beetroot sounds like a recipe for a stained ceiling. I assume the nutritional payoff is worth the laundry bill.
Oh, it will absolutely stain everything in a 5-foot radius.
I bet.
But the biological benefit is massive. The deep red pigments in foods like beetroot are incredibly dense in antioxidants. These are compounds that protect cells from damage and support the healthy development of blood vessels.
Wow. Okay, so Thursday is the white category. Mashed banana, potato, or a soft rice porridge. This feels like the classic traditional baby food that we see in commercials.
It is the traditional baseline for a reason. White foods are generally the easiest compounds for a new stomach to break down.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, they are gentle, they provide a very accessible source of carbohydrates for energy, and they serve as an excellent safe canvas for practicing the physical act of swallowing without overwhelming the digestive tract.
But getting back to the colors, Friday is the one category in these notes that genuinely made me pause. Purple.
Ah, yes, purple.
The recommendations here are purple cabbage or brinjal, which is eggplant. Wait, eggplant for a baby. People usually just think of bland white rice cereal.
It does sound unconventional, I know.
The idea of serving a baby mashed eggplant seems almost radical to me.
It does, but the purple category is arguably the most important element of the entire rainbow strategy.
Yeah.
And not just for the chemistry.
Really? Why?
Well, yes, purple foods are rich in protective phytonutrients, but beyond that, there's a profound behavioral mechanism at play here. Early food experiences literally program future eating habits.
Wait, how does that programming actually work? Are we just trying to shock their taste buds?
Not shock them, no. We are capitalizing on a very brief developmental window where a baby is naturally curious and their palate is essentially a blank slate.
Okay.
Babies who are gently introduced to a wide spectrum of distinct flavors, including slightly bitter tastes like cabbage or eggplant, are significantly more likely to accept a variety of foods later in life.
Oh, because you are expanding their internal database of what normal food tastes like before they have a chance to form a bias.
Exactly. If you only ever give a baby bland, white, sweet foods, their palate locks into that expectation.
They just think all food is bananas and rice.
Precisely. You are preventing the picky eating phase before it even begins. You are teaching their brain that food comes in many different profiles, and that bitter or earthy flavors are safe and normal.
Okay, so we have this beautifully varied menu to work with. But having a color-coded map is only half the battle. When you look at the actual mechanics of feeding in these notes, there are some glaring contradictions that we need to untangle for the listener.
Oh yeah, medical guidance can sometimes read like a riddle.
Seriously?
It often requires translating clinical goals into daily realities. Which contradictions stood out to you the most?
Definitely the role of milk. If I'm a parent reading this, I'm scratching my head.
I don't blame you.
Early in the text, it explicitly states milk should be replaced with solids as main source of nutrition. But then, just a few paragraphs later, it insists milk should remain the main nutrition source till 1 year and clarifies that solids do not replace milk at this stage.
Yeah, it sounds completely opposite.
Right. So, are we replacing the milk or are we keeping the milk?
It's a very common point of confusion. What the text is attempting to describe is a long-term transition, not a sudden switch. Think of it like a 6-month-long baton pass in a relay race.
A 6-month baton pass. Okay, that helps clarify the timeline.
When the medical text says milk should be replaced, it is stating the ultimate finish line of the process you are beginning at 6 months. You are starting the long journey of handing over the nutritional responsibility.
I see.
But when it says milk should remain the main nutrition source till 1 year, it is explaining the reality of the immediate moment. Between 6 and 12 months, the milk is still the anchor.
He's doing all the heavy lifting.
Exactly. It provides the vast bulk of their calories and essential hydration. Those tiny 1 or 2 teaspoons of pumpkin or peas are just complementing the milk running alongside it. The baton hasn't been fully handed off yet.
You don't just drop the baton on day 1. That clears up so much anxiety.
Glad to hear it.
But there's another contradiction that jumped out regarding salt and sugar. The source poses the question, can I add salt or sugar to baby food? And the answer written is literally yes and no as baby is developing taste.
Yes and no. Very helpful.
Right, because the very next sentence is a hard rule. It says, babies do not need added salt or sugar at this stage. What does yes and no even mean when we are talking about a baby's diet?
So this requires understanding the physiological limits of an infant's organs. The no is the absolute non-negotiable medical recommendation regarding added ingredients.
Okay.
You should never add salt to baby food because a 6-month-old's kidneys are completely immature. They simply do not have the filtration capacity to process high levels of sodium. It can be incredibly dangerous for their system.
Wow, okay, and the sugar?
Added sugar offers zero nutritional benefit while metabolically programming them to crave hypersweet processed foods.
So the no is about the caregiver actually reaching for the salt shaker or the sugar bowl. Where does the yes come in?
The yes relates to the natural compounds already present in the rainbow diet. Foods naturally contain sodium and complex sugars.
Like a sweet potato is naturally sweet.
Exactly, and spinach has natural sodium.
Yeah.
The baby is developing a taste for these natural flavor profiles. So yes, they are experiencing and learning about salty and sweet dimensions through whole foods.
Got it.
But no, you are never artificially altering the food to make it more palatable to an adult's taste buds. Keep it entirely natural and homemade.
Which naturally leads to the things we absolutely must keep off the menu.
Oh yes, the avoid list.
The source lists packaged, processed baby foods as something to avoid relying on, prioritizing fresh homemade mashes instead. And hard foods like nuts, whole grapes, or raw carrots are strictly out because of the obvious mechanical choking hazard.
Right, that's a big one.
But there is one item on the do not feed list that always catches people off guard. Honey.
Honey is a fascinating yet critical safety point. It is entirely natural, which lulls people into a false sense of security, but it must be completely avoided for any baby under 1 year old due to the risk of infant botulism.
Wait, can you explain the actual mechanism there? Why can an adult eat honey in their tea, but a baby can't have a tiny drop in their porridge?
It comes down to stomach acid. Honey naturally contains spores of a bacteria called Clostridium botulinum.
Okay.
When an adult or older child eats honey, our mature digestive systems produce strong stomach acids that instantly destroy these spores before they can do any harm.
But a baby's stomach doesn't.
Right. A 6-month-old stomach is still developing. Their stomach acid is relatively weak. If they ingest those spores, the spores survive, take root in the intestines, and begin producing a dangerous toxin that attacks the nervous system.
Oh.
Yeah, it is a severe life-threatening infection.
That is a terrifying but incredibly necessary explanation. It's a stark reminder that natural does not automatically mean safe for an immature digestive system.
Exactly.
So we understand the physiological mechanics, we've resolved the contradictions, and we have our beautifully diverse rainbow menu.
We're making progress.
Yes. But now we need to set some realistic expectations for the listener. Because we can plan all we want, but the reality is that a lot of that nutrient-dense spinach puree is inevitably going to end up on the floor, smeared on the baby's forehead, and all over your shirt.
Oh, that level of chaos is absolutely guaranteed.
It really is.
And it leads to a tremendous amount of unnecessary stress. Caregivers see the mess, or they see the baby making a face and pushing the food away, and their immediate assumption is that something is medically wrong, or that the baby hates the food.
The source outlines what is actually normal during this training wheels phase, and I think understanding the biology behind the mess is going to be a huge relief.
For sure.
So, what does normal actually look like?
Normal looks highly uncoordinated. It is completely normal for the baby to spit the food out constantly. It is normal for them to eat only a fraction of a teaspoon.
Really? Even if they seem interested?
Oh, yeah. It is normal for them to just squish the food in their hands or, on some days, flat out refuse to open their mouth for solids at all.
You know, I was thinking about the biomechanics of this, and it's like a conveyor belt that has only ever run in one direction.
That's a great way to put it.
Up until 6 months, the baby's tongue only knows one motion, this front-to-back thrusting section used for drinking milk. When you put a spoon of mashed banana in their mouth, we expect them to suddenly know how to move that food side to side, gather it up, and swallow.
And that is exactly what is happening anatomically. The tongue thrust is a survival reflex.
Oh, wow.
When they feel a new texture, their instinct is to use that same forward thrusting motion, which naturally pushes the puree right back out of their mouth and down their chin.
So when they spit it out, they aren't necessarily communicating, "I hate this flavor." Their tongue is literally just doing the only thing it's ever been programmed to do.
It is a pure reflex. Learning to override that reflex, to use the tongue to manipulate a solid piece of food and safely move it to the back of the throat, is a highly coordinated, brand new neurological skill.
That makes so much sense.
That is exactly why feeding looks messy, wasteful, and inconsistent. The spitting and the mess are active signs of learning, not signs of failure.
That reframing changes everything. If we view the mess as learning, it removes the pressure.
Absolutely.
With that in mind, the notes highlight some common mistakes caregivers make, and they almost all stem from a place of anxiety and trying to force the process.
Yeah, the most prevalent mistakes involve rushing the timeline. Starting before the 6-month mark is a major one, as we discussed with the choking and digestion risks.
What about food variety? Like, can I just mix a bunch of stuff together?
That's another common error, introducing a whole bowl of mixed vegetables at once. The rule is one new food at a time for a few days, so you can clearly monitor for any allergic reactions, like a sudden rash, vomiting, or diarrhea.
And obviously, if you see any of those allergic indicators, you stop the food and consult a pediatrician immediately.
Absolutely, no questions asked.
Right.
But on a day-to-day basis, the biggest mistake is giving too much food too quickly and trying to force the baby to take one more bite when they are clearly showing signs of being done.
Like turning their head away or keeping their lips clamped shut?
Right. The guide offers a brilliant foundational rule for this entire milestone. Your baby sets the pace, not the spoon.
Your baby sets the pace, not the spoon. If you took nothing else away from this deep dive, let it be that.
It's the golden rule.
But of course, as much as we want to normalize the mess and the refusals, we do need to know when a refusal crosses the line into a medical concern.
Definitely.
If spitting out food and skipping a meal is normal, what is the definitive when to worry checklist for you, the listener?
While almost all variations in appetite are normal, there are specific red flags to watch for. You should consult a doctor if the baby is refusing both their solid practice foods and their primary milk source.
Okay, so if they stop drinking milk too.
Exactly. If there's persistent, forceful vomiting, and we mean actual vomiting, not just the normal wet burps or spitting up.
Right, there's a difference.
Extreme lethargy or unresponsiveness is always a major warning sign.
Got it.
And finally, if there is poor or stagnant weight gain over time.
Got it.
If you observe any of these, or honestly, if your intuition just tells you something doesn't feel right, never hesitate to reach out to a healthcare professional.
We have covered some truly fascinating ground today. Let's pull all these threads together. Starting solids at the 6-month mark is entirely about developmental practice, not nutritional perfection.
Right. Training wheels.
Exactly. We have an incredibly simple rainbow feeding plan to guide us, focusing on one soft, colorful mash a day, rotating through the vitamins of yellow pumpkins, the iron of green spinach, and the palate-expanding flavors of purple brinjal.
It's a great system.
It really is. We know that the milk baton hasn't been fully passed yet, serving as the nutritional anchor while they explore, and we now understand that the tongue-thrusting mess is just the biomechanical process of a brain learning a new skill.
The doctor's note at the conclusion of the guide perfectly captures the essence of this transition.
Oh, what does it say?
Starting solids is rarely about getting it perfectly right on the first try. Caregivers who remain calm, patient, and consistent will see gradual improvement. Feeding a baby is about establishing bonding, trust, and physical growth, just as much as it is about iron and zinc.
It is the very beginning of a lifelong conversation with food. And that brings me to a final thought I want to leave you with today. We spend so much energy stressing about the precise nutritional math of these early meals, worrying if they got enough beta-carotene or fiber.
We really do.
But consider how deeply our very first encounters with food, those chaotic, messy spoonfuls of sweet potato or green beans, might unconsciously wire our lifelong relationship with eating, with joy, and with trust.
That's a profound thought.
Think about the adults you know who have a stubborn, almost irrational aversion to vegetables. What if that aversion isn't really about the taste of broccoli at all?
Right?
What if it's just the distant, unconscious echo of a poorly timed, forced spoonful of spinach from when they were 6 months old, trying to navigate a high-stakes exam they didn't understand?
Wow.
When we reframe that first bite from a pressured test into a colorful sensory experiment, we aren't just feeding a baby for a day. We're setting the table for a lifetime of healthy, joyful eating. So put away the stress, embrace the purple cabbage, and let them get messy.